What's up everybody, welcome back or to the channel. So today we're going to be fixing something on my 2016 Ram 2500 Cummins right behind me. Now the issue that I've been having is that my low coolant light has been coming on and going off for the past month or so. I did buy a gallon of a different brand coolant, which is the OAT 50/50 coolant, just in a different brand. Now I know you're not supposed to really mix these brands, but I needed the coolant in a pinch, and that's what was available. So I did pour it into the reservoir. The reservoir was a little bit low, and I went about my day. About a month later, I noticed that my low coolant light came back on, and it's been going on and off. It doesn't stay on all the time. So the problem is, I checked my coolant, and it looks a little bit low again. So I don't know where I'm losing this coolant from, because I don't really see it dripping out anywhere. I don't see it puddling up under my truck. I don't really know what the issue is. But the coolant light does keep coming on and off, and my coolant reservoir does look a little low. So I don't know if there's a slow leak somewhere. I don't know what the situation is. Now I assume, based on research, that it's probably just the sensor. But to take the sensor out, you pretty much have to take the wheel well liner out on the passenger side to get access to it. But taking a closer look at my reservoir, it looks really dirty and stained. So sometimes over time, that coolant can start to break down a little bit. You do get a little bit of crud in there, a little bit of debris, just like minor sludge almost. And that could build up over time. So there are a lot of variables here that I don't know which one is the problem or not. So I figured if I'm gonna be taking the wheel off and taking the wheel well liner out and going through the hassle of just changing the sensor, I'm gonna change the reservoir too and put a brand new one in. So that's what we're doing today. I ordered a new sensor and I ordered a new reservoir. So today we're going to be draining the radiator, replacing the reservoir, replacing the sensor, and putting all brand new fluid back in the truck. Hopefully this is going to fix my problem. So without further ado, let's jump in and let's get this started. Okay, so over here, this is the fluid I'm using. I did go ahead and order the Mopar 50/50 pre-diluted. This actually is the OAT style coolant that this truck needs. This is the part number right here, the 681-63849AB. Now there's another version of this with an 8 instead of a 9. That 8 part number is the concentrate version, which you will have to dilute yourself with distilled water. But if you want to do it easier, just get the part number right there, the 681-63849AB, and that already comes pre-diluted with a 50/50 mix. So I got 6 gallons. I know from dry, the truck will take roughly 6 gallons, but because we're not doing a full flush, I'm probably only gonna use 5 gallons. I just got an extra one just in case. So we have that. In this box over here, I have my brand new reservoir, which I ordered online. So we got a brand new reservoir too, nice and clean. In this little package here, we have the sensor, but I am gonna go ahead and replace the bottom hose just as well. I probably don't need to, but I'm doing it just as well because if I'm gonna take my wheel off and take the wheel well liner out and go through the hassle of doing this, I just wanna replace some of the main parts so I don't have to do it again. So that's what we gotta do there. What I'm gonna do, put it on a jack, put some jack stands up, take the wheel off, then I have to take my wheel well liner out. Once I remove the wheel well liner, I'll have access up here to get to the reservoir. So that's what we're gonna do there. But what I need to do first is drain the coolant. So what I'm gonna do for ease is take my front grill off. There's just basically the 4 bolts across the top, and there's 2 little pressure clips down here and one over here behind over here. Once you take your front grill off, you'll have access to, right behind it, there's a little rubber flap here. You move out of the way. Down at the bottom is where you're gonna find your drain plug to drain your radiator. And then we're just gonna put a bucket down over here and drain the coolant out. Now you probably can get to this drain plug behind here by taking this bolt out right here. And because the hose is attached at the bottom of the reservoir, it's a little bit flexible. You can move this reservoir here out of the way, like over here a little bit, enough to get your hand and a tool down there to get to that drain plug that's behind over here. But for today's purpose, just to make this easier, I'm just gonna take my whole grill off and get this started. So let me work on taking that off and we're gonna jump into this. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we went ahead and we got the wheel off. I did take off my gap guard and I have my wheel well liner taken off. I did have to disconnect some of my wiring to get a couple of the rock lights disconnected, but we got it all taken apart. Now over here, now you can see that I have full access to my reservoir over here. Now these wires here, they're just going to my rock lights, so don't mind them. So right there is my reservoir, and right there is the sensor underneath the reservoir. Now if you look at the color of the reservoir here, you can see how kind of cruddy it looks. So I don't know if that's part of the problems where maybe all that crud is messing with the sensor. I don't know if this bottom hose here is causing any issues. It doesn't look like it's leaking or anything. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is basically we're gonna drain the coolant, and then once we're done draining it, we're gonna go ahead and disconnect the bolts holding the reservoir in. We're gonna unplug our sensor. We're gonna disconnect this bottom hose, and we're gonna get that all replaced later. But to drain the coolant, I went ahead and I removed my front grill. I took this little flap off right here, which is just sitting over here. Okay, this heavy duty flap right here. Most of it's just push pins. There was a bolt at the bottom though, so I took that off. And if you look way, see if I can get you in there. You see that bolt right there that I'm pointing at? Right at the bottom? That is your drain plug. You're gonna go right in from this angle here from the side using the Allen wrench. You're not twisting it out and pulling it out as a plug. You're just pulling it out enough for everything to drain out. So let me get working on that. Okay, so we got it draining right now. It's draining into a bucket. It's not the cleanest of a drain. It's not like there's a drain plug on the bottom like you would typically have on your oil. It just kind of drains out the top over here and just falls down. So it might splash on a couple things. It just kind of drains down the side like that. Okay, so just kind of adjust your bucket accordingly. All I did was use a wrench. So you're gonna take a 10mm Allen socket and go straight into the side, and then you're gonna back it out. Okay, so you're not gonna force this thing out. You're only pulling it out about halfway. Let me see if I can kind of zoom in so you can see. About that much, okay? So once you get that opened up, all of your fluid will start to drain out. Okay, so I'm just sitting here waiting for the fluid to completely drain out. Once it has completely drained out and stopped dripping right here, I assume I'm probably not even gonna get a full 5 gallons out of it. So if you're trying to flush out all 6 gallons, you're gonna probably have to have some type of tools or vacuum or pump, or have a professional do it. They're gonna have to vacuum out or pump out all 6 gallons. Being that I was already low, I'm not even expecting 5 gallons here. So I assume I'll probably get maybe a half a bucket full here, and we'll have to see how that goes. For now, I'm just gonna let this drain and we'll come back here shortly. Okay, so we're back and the coolant is done draining. Again, I probably have maybe about 3/4 of a bucket. I did get the reservoir taken out. Again, this was not easy. I will be the first to admit that this was not exactly easy. So I had to take a lot of stuff apart. I ended up taking the intake off to get room right here. I had to disconnect the battery and take the whole battery out of its holder right here. And then once you take the 3 bolts out, there's one nut here, there's a nut here, and then there's a nut right down there on the bottom. Once you unplug your hoses, there's a hose here. There's a hose that went down below. I'll show you in a minute. And I think there's a hose that comes up around over here and connects over to here. And then once I disconnected it, I was able to kind of take the reservoir and kind of turn it and kind of like rotate it as I'm pulling it out. And I was able to fit it here without really pushing or bending anything out of the way. It wasn't really gonna work down below because down here, this line right here is in the way, so I couldn't really pull it down. So it just seemed like pulling it out from the top was the easiest. So now that I have it completely out, as you can see here, right there, that's the main tube that the lower, thicker tube comes down and connects to right there. So I gotta replace that. Then I have to cut those pinch clips off here. I hate these ones here, but that's a pinch clip there. And then try to use some adjustable clamps, either like this, or I have some other ones, these type of clips like that. Those will probably be what I gotta use. But the new hose comes with new clamps here on the bottom, so I'll be putting that on. And then we just gotta go ahead and put our new reservoir in the same way we took it out, hook up all of our hoses, put our new sensor in, so we'll come back and do that in a minute. But overall, it's coming along. It just was a little bit more work than I anticipated, but we're getting there. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I took the hoses off the old reservoir. I got them in position with new clamps down here. So everything's good to go with that. I got my new hose put on. Come under here and see right here. Okay, there's the new hose ready to connect to the bottom of the reservoir. I have it mounted over here with its pinch clip. Okay, I just have a safety clip on that for now. Once I get everything hooked up in position, that little yellow pinch clip right there, once I pull it off, it'll actually allow the compression clip to just shut and close itself. So almost done there. So once I get that going, we should be good. Okay, so here's the sensor right here. As you can see here, here's some information here. I don't know if you need that or not, but that's basically what the sensor looks like. Okay, sorry about that. Just wanted to give you guys a quick update, okay? Taking the old sensor out of the old reservoir was almost impossible for me without completely destroying this thing. The back cap broke off. I couldn't chisel it out. Maybe it's just stuck in there and sludged in there from so long. I don't know. All I know is this new reservoir actually came with a new sensor. So the new sensor that I bought over there, I didn't need. But this new reservoir actually came with it already mounted. So if your sensor goes bad and you decide to buy a new reservoir, double check with who you're buying it from. It might come with a sensor and then you don't need to buy a sensor like I did. So this is actually a little bit handier. So if you do start to have sensor issues with your reservoir and your coolant system, it might just be easier to do what I'm doing today and just replace the whole thing. Because again, as you can see here, I could not get the old one out. I've been chiseling at it, ripping it out. It's like locked in there. So I don't know if, you know, Mopar has a special key or something to get that out. I don't know, but I didn't want to destroy the reservoir. So luckily this one came with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything hooked back up and we'll be right back. Okay, so we just went ahead and we got the new reservoir installed. Again, I put it in the same way I took it out. You just kind of have to go down on an angle and kind of rotate it to the left to get it back into place. Got all my bolts put back in. I got my top hose here connected over here. Got this hose here routed back behind the battery bracket as it was. And it pops out up over here, wraps around. Got that reconnected. Got the bottom hose down there connected. It's that silver foil wrap one, and I have it connected down below there. So now I got a new bottom hose, a new reservoir. I checked the other lines. They all look good. I don't see any cracks or dry rot or leaks, so that seems to be pretty good. So far everything's hooked up and ready to go. All I need to do now is put my battery back in, get my intake mounted back in. Once I have that done, I can start filling it up with fluid. Once everything's good and working with no leaks, I'll start getting all my wiring for my rock lights kind of resituated again, get my tire put back on, and we should be good to go. But you can see right there how that reservoir looks so much nicer than that sludge. Everything's hooked back up the way it should be. I got my sensor hooked back up, so we're good to go there. So far, so good. So let me continue on. Let me get everything rehooked back up, and then we'll start filling up our reservoir with the new fluid that's over there, and then we'll go from there. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're all done getting everything drained. We got the old reservoir removed. We got the new reservoir put in. We put the new lower hose on. Everything's all connected. Everything looks good. I got the battery all hooked up, got the terminals cleaned and lubricated, got the air intake hooked up. I'll deal with the rock light wiring here once we're all done. We're pretty much at the point now where we are ready to fill up with new coolant. I'll come over here and show you the old stuff. So as you can see here, let me get out of the way here. It's all cruddy, very dirty. I mean, this thing is disgusting. I don't even know what's going on inside there, but either way, I'm assuming that what's going on inside of here was ruining the sensor. But either way, it's all replaced with brand new. So we are good to go. I got the plug tightened back up down here. So the plug is all snug tight again. So that's all good to go. All of the hoses below are all hooked up. Sensors hooked up. That hose is over there is connected. Top. Those are connected. That's connected right there. and that one's connected there. So everything's good to go. So all I have to do now is get a funnel, take the lid off the reservoir, and start pouring in the actual coolant fluid. Okay, so we got the funnel put in the top reservoir. Let me open up the cap for the first jug. Let's try to pour this in and see how it goes. So this right here is kind of like a translucent pink. So it's very light. You could see through it. So this looks a lot better and a lot healthier than what was in there that I removed. This coolant here looks nice and clean and fresh, and it's very liquidy. So it looks like it should flow through the system a lot better and do a much better job at cooling my engine and protecting it than that old sludge I had in there before. Now I will say this is a 2016 Ram 2500 Cummins with 42,000 miles on it, and this is the first time the coolant has ever been changed. So definitely make sure you read up on your owner's manual and try to find out how often you should change this, and don't let it go too long so that you don't have any issues like I had. So let me keep filling up the rest of these jugs and we'll be back. Okay, so I'm working on the 4th gallon now. I have about a half a gallon left on the 4th gallon. As you can see, it's showing pretty full right now. So if you just keep taking this hose here and pinching it, you'll see you could get some of the air bubbles out that might be in your system a little bit, and just kind of purge it, and just keep squeezing. And then eventually you'll see that fluid go down a little bit. Again, I only have about maybe 3.5, almost 4 gallons put in there. So there still could be a gallon or so somewhere in the system. I don't know. But what I'll have to do is start the truck, turn the heater on and just kind of get it moving, get everything flowing. And then we'll have to shut the truck off, come back and check to make sure where the fluid level is, because I assume that once we start the truck, turn the heater on, just kind of get things moving and flowing, that level right there should come down, and then we can put a little bit more fluid in once it cools off. So again, this is not just a quick fix. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to do this. So I'm going to try to purge this just a little bit more, and then we'll cap that off and we'll give the truck a start. So I'll be back here shortly. Okay, we are finally done. We got everything put back together. I got the wheel on, I got the fender liner in, I got the gap guards in, I got the Bushwhacker fender flare put back on, I got all the wiring cleaned up. The only thing I have to do now is just buy a little bit more blue, thicker wire loom to go over these back wires right here. But everything else is looking pretty good. We have it all good to go. Everything's hooked up. We got the new fluid put in. Everything's holding steady. I started the truck, heated it up a little bit. The coolant light has not turned back on yet. Crossing our fingers on that. Everything's good to go. So let's go ahead and start it up. So everything's looking good, sounding good. I got the new catch can put on the other day. That's working out well. The new reservoir, I'm really happy about that because that was definitely in need of being replaced. So I got all that done. So we are good to rock and roll. Let's go check out the inside. All right, so here we are. No issues with the gauge. Let me go down. See if I can go to messages, 0 messages. So again, we are good to go on all that. Go back up to vehicle info. Again, I just turned the truck back on, so it's at about 100 right now. So what I'll do now is just run the truck for a few days, and then I'll come back and check out the coolant level in the reservoir. And if I need to top it off a little bit more, I can. But now everything is good to go. And now I no longer have the coolant light up here on the dash. So I'd say replacing the reservoir with the new sensor was a success. Okay, so I've been driving the truck for a couple days now, and so far so good. The low coolant light has not been coming on, so that's always good news. And my coolant temperature is running between about 188 and 192 degrees Fahrenheit. So before I did the coolant change, I would be about 192 upwards of 200. Right now, I tend to be between 188 and 192. And again, the low coolant light has not come back on. I have not had any codes come back up. So I assume that replacing the reservoir, the lower hose, and the sensor, and putting in fresh new fluid has fixed this issue I've had. Okay, everybody, so we are finally done. This was a medium-sized project for me. Again, the hardest part of the whole thing was really just getting everything taken off to be able to get the reservoir out. Doing a simple drain and refill by draining the radiator and filling the reservoir, that's pretty simple and easy. But taking off the whole grill, draining all the radiator fluid, taking out the cold air intake, taking out the battery, taking off the wheel, taking out the wheel well liner, just doing all that work. Plus I had all that wiring to deal with because of my rock lights. So if you don't happen to have all the stuff that I have on my truck, this job should be a lot easier for you. But overall, we got the old, dirty, gunked up reservoir ripped out of the truck. We put the new one in. We got all the hoses put on. I got the new thicker hose put on the bottom. I didn't have to replace the sensor because the sensor came with the new reservoir that I ordered. So I didn't actually need that extra sensor that I ordered because I wasn't aware that the new reservoir came with one. But overall, we put in about 4 gallons of new coolant. There's no low coolant light and everything's good to go. So again, that's it. I hope this video helps some of you out. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, like this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And also do me a favor, subscribe to the channel because it definitely helps me out and I greatly appreciate it. So that's it. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you. I truly appreciate you all. And as always, see you in the next video.